good to be here. I've missed the group and the room and the community we create here together every week. Thanks to those of you who came and supported the class while I had subs. I should be around for a while. I don't think I'm going to be gone again for a while, so looking forward to settling back in. So what I've been thinking about a lot the last day or so is this idea of connection, and connection being something that we all so deeply want and need, but so many of us are wired to not be able to connect. Not be able to connect with ourselves, not be able to connect with each other, not be able to accept others wanting to connect with us. For me, connection in that way, in that sort of psycho-spiritual way, felt really scary and dangerous. And, just based on kind of how my brain was created in my early years. And so when I would come across a person who really actually wanted to connect, I would run like hell. I did not want anything to do with that person because it was really scary to me. And I certainly did not want to connect with myself. And so I did lots of things to disconnect from myself. Self being, at that time, my emotional self, I would say, for the most part. So for me, what meditation started to do very early on was create this connection with myself, with my emotional and mental self, so with thought and emotion. And it really was like discovering a whole new continent. I hadn't any idea that all of that was there, and that that I'd been basically blind to it. And so it was wonderful, and it was also terrible, because there were all these things that I had to feel that I hadn't felt. Just layer after layer of things that had just been smashed down like one of those cakes that's just like a billion layers, and it was just like all in there. And I couldn't just eat the whole cake. Like I had to eat it layer by layer, and that was my experience, like layer by layer, sort of feeling and digesting and releasing the emotion and the story that I'd been resisting for so long. And pretty quickly I started to have a really lovely connection with myself that started to extend out to other people too. But I mean, I look back now and I think about sort of how amazing that seemed and how revolutionary that seemed, and just like, wow, what's happening? And it was nothing. When I look at it in the grand scheme, it was just a speck of what is possible, of the connection that is available, of the ability to see and be seen that's possible. But at that time, it was huge. And I say that because, there's not a graduation day. I probably 10 years from now, I'll look at the way that I sort of process and experience, and I'll be like, oh, that's so sweet, because we're constantly evolving. And if we're on this spiritual path and we think there's going to be a day where we know and where we're enlightened, I mean, it depends on what your belief system is. My belief system is working towards believing less and less, having less and less of a belief system. Because there's just not a graduation day, and there's not some final enlightenment. I don't even really use that word ever, but awakenings just continue as we work through those layers of that cake. And then we're like, oh, there wasn't even a cake there. And now we're working through layers of something else altogether. And that's life. And we can look at that as like this hard thing, like, oh my goodness, I have to keep growing. Or we can look at it as, oh my goodness, I am alive. And I am this amazing unfolding, part of a much greater unfolding. And I get to, through this human self, I get to witness that. And the more that we wake up, the more that we get wise to the experience of softening and being, the more sort of vast and miraculous it all becomes. When we get over the trippy stuff and we're like, okay, yeah, so there's a lot of synchronicity and there's this whole new experience of interacting with other people and like nature and right, like we sort of like those first like layers of awakening, well then we start to be able to settle in and just let it spread out. Let it touch every part of experience, and the teachers that I love, they talk about this as just a eternal unfolding. And I really relate and respect that perspective. And the thing is that, I can sit here and talk about this stuff, and maybe it's helpful in some way, but ultimately, like, you got it. You don't need me or anyone else to wake up. It's just helpful to have support and guidance, but it's in you. So when someone says, oh, I felt so horrible, and then we talked or we had a session and now I feel so different, I'm like, well, that's awesome and I'm so glad I could facilitate it, but that's you. We're all our own best teacher. The Buddha says, be a light, be a lamp unto yourself. And so we all get to have our own amazing, mysterious experience in this whole life thing. And then we find the people and the places that resonate with us and that support us in that unfolding. So this practice of mindfulness, this practice of meditation, this practice of awakening leads us to deeper and deeper connection with ourselves and with each other. And I look at anything going on in the world right now, and right now I'm very sort of myopic about it, and it's like it's just a lack of connection, like basic human to human connection. Whether it's someone being shamed for using the wrong word to explain something online, or whether it's Donald Trump, there's a lack of connection. And so that's what I'm always trying to move towards, is how can there be more connection? And it always has to start with me. I need to be connected to this organism first, and this experience of being a human. And if that's in place, then it becomes much easier to extend out and to feel and see and experience you, and to allow you to feel and see and experience me. But I think the connection, human connection, is the remedy for what ails us in general in this world. And so many of us are miswired, and we're wired not to connect. And the sad thing is that it's our innate right, it's our birthright to connect. I mean, we grow inside of each other. We come from things inside of people's bodies. Like, we're all connected, right? Like, but unfortunately, it's not as high a priority to nurture and encourage connection as it is to nurture and encourage doing and getting it right and being someone. If instead of that we were teaching each other how to connect, we would have a really different kind of world. And so what each of us can do in our lives is we can practice connecting to the best of our ability, one day at a time, with ourselves and with each other. And that includes seeking that connection even with the people you disagree with, even with the people that scare you, even with the people that you wish were not even on this planet. I'm not saying you have to go sit next to them and be like, hey, let's connect. This is great. But it's more of like a sensory sort of energetic thing of not closing our hearts, hardening ourselves, and refusing to see and accept the humanity of everyone. And so I challenge you this week as we slog through whatever's coming next, to keep that in mind, this idea of connection, this idea of staying open. Because when you disconnect from that person who has a different opinion or, a whole different ethics system, when you disconnect from them, you disconnect from you. And so I'll be practicing that with you this week, and hopefully every week for the rest of my life, connecting. Even when the easy or even sort of socially acceptable thing to do would be to disconnect. Instead, connect. And it can be as simple as sitting down and doing a practice like we did today. Just connecting with ourselves. Or coming to a group, or joining online and being a part of community. So, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna say goodbye to Facebook Live. Goodbye, Facebook Live.